Before we start the workshop and masterclass, I'm going to put some videos from the conductor, José Mauricio Brandao.
With MailChimp, you can design more engaging marketing assets in no time at all.
Good afternoon, Professor José Mauricio. Let me just, before you start, I was just putting a video of your conducting at the University Federal of
Hi, Gaby.
Hi.
So long time I haven't seen you.
So as we start, today I just need to do some attendance to the students that are coming. Need to make sure that they're attending. They're receiving bonus points.
That's good. Claps for credits.
Let me add you as a co-host so we can change. So, would you like for me
I
to
have just changed here because one of my connections just got lost. I changed for another one. I will try to make to this other machine the presentation. Give me 2 minutes.
Meanwhile, can I put some of the videos that?
Did you find some?
Yes, I did find.
Which of them did you find?
Coronation.
Our proven installation process ensures you.
Let me just get the link here. I wrote the link. going to stop here. Would like to say about you a little bit of your biography, your work in Brazil.
That's fine.
So I'll introduce. I'm not a good host. Introduce formally as a New Mexico Tech, New Mexico Institute of Mining and Technology Mining. I forgot the name. New Mexico Tech. So on the music program, we presented Professor José Mauricio, that was one of my masters. So this program is Masterclass workshop. So today, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and coming here. So we have some students, Owen, Logan. So today, what you're going to share with us, please? First, tell about yourself.
Well, thank you very much, Gaby. I am José Mauricio Brandao. I am a piano player and a conductor. I completed my bachelor degree at the Federal University in Bahia in piano performance. After some time teaching, I started a master program in orchestral conducting and opera conducting, followed by somehow 9 years later, my first doctoral program, this one in opera conducting specifically, also here at the Federal University of Bahia. And some years just after I was going to complete my first doctoral, I had the opportunity to go to US to have my second doctoral degree that was at Louisiana State University. My American university is LSU, where I completed my second doctoral degree, this one in orchestral conducting, and with my research based on orchestral conducting teaching. When I completed my second doctoral degree, I came back to Brazil and I started to work as a professor, now as a full professor, because I worked some time before here in non-tenure positions. That was when I was Gabe's teacher. And for the past 13 years, I am back in Brazil at the Federal University of Bahia as full professor in conducting. And for the past 5 years, I am working as dean of the School of Music. And for the past 12 years, rebuilding our Federal University Orchestra, the one I work regularly from that time. This is basically my compiled bio.
Thank you. So today we have some of my students. I offer them a great deal to come here and learn. Owen, Logan, so far. Noradine is my husband, he's here. So let's see. Tomorrow is the Super Bowl.
Wow.
We have a challenge of the Super Bowl. I put the trailer for them to identify the elements that on following the beat on the chapter number 3, exercise 10, work of the 16th note combination.
I have my memories from my American times, especially because I was living in the United States when the New Orleans Saints went to the finals at the Super Bowl. And we got it. Wow. Because as I was at LSU, I was living in Baton Rouge, very close to New Orleans. So that was one of the reasons I had became a Saints fan.
That's good.
So, Gaby, when we are ready, I will start here the presentation, and then we will talk about some issues regarding conducting.
We are ready.
Okay, let me try to put on the presentation. Just a minute. Do you have already my screen, Gaby?
Yes, I do.
Okay, let's go over here. Here you go. So I have named this presentation technical, psychological, and social approaches to conducting. Here below, we have my credentials, the ones I just mentioned in the presentation of my bio. And here at the bottom, we have the flag of the UFBA School of Music. I'd like to make some acknowledgements. The first of them is to Professor Gabe Benali. Gabe is a very close friend of mine for a long time, and I have many opportunities to get in touch with her musicality and especially of her wonderful family. Ennio Antunes, Gabe's brother, was my classmate at our undergraduate program. That was a reason and pleasure for me. Ennio is a wonderful violin player, and we worked together for many times. Gabe studied with me in my classes when she was in her undergrad program, and I had the happy opportunity to invite Gaby to be a soloist in some of my performances. And I would like to name Bach's Magnificat and Mozart Requiem. And I would say Gaby is one of the most beautiful voices I have worked in my life. Thank you very much, Gaby. And I would like also to thank all the students, colleagues, and diverse people at this meeting. I start my presentation with this epigraph, taken from Cicero, a Roman senator and writer, from his book, De Legibus. He says, "Not only is there an art in knowing a thing, but also a certain art in teaching it." And when we move on towards this presentation, up to the end, I will be back to the message contained in this epigraph. What can we say about the state of the art in the field of conducting? The current state of this discipline, conducting, shows a plethora of conventional traditions and techniques that are accepted without question, but a dearth of ideas and approaches that will develop the skills essential to producing an effective conductor. In order for this profession to grow and develop, further work must be done to assess and evaluate which techniques are successful and then incorporate them into a curriculum. what is the reason for me to put this assumption at the very beginning? I work teaching conducting for almost 30 years. When I finished my undergrad and I got my first job as a professor, one of the very first classes I had to teach was conducting. And there was something for me that was somehow confusing, because I was starting to teach and I was doing that exactly the way I was taught. And the problem was some students could get it, some others don't. And then I asked myself, I wondered whether if it would be possible. Let's see what happened before. About this statement, Max Rudolph states, Max Rudolph is an important author in the field of conducting. Some instructors take interest in the history of performing skills. Others are content with handing down to their pupils the more or less valid traditions inherited from their teachers. A conductor, while working on his interpretative ideas, must be prepared to make his own choices. His education, therefore, should provide information on the broadest possible basis and encourage curiosity in every field of music. This Max Rudolph wrote in the very first edition of his book. To make up this presentation, I used his third edition, that is from 1995. He wrote this in 1950. So, what exactly conducting is, or what exactly should conducting be? As stated in the Oxford Dictionary of Music, conducting is defined as the art or method of controlling a choir, a band, an orchestra, or an operatic performance by means of gestures, which involve the beating of time, ensuring correct entries, and the shaping of individual phrasing. As a matter of necessity, conducting was born as an audible metric pulse and evolved to a silent code in order to avoid any distractions to the music. As we understood conducting today, it is non-verbal communication, approximately 150 years old, and intended to organize the performance of musical ensembles. The Grove Dictionary of Music adds more detail. Modern conducting combines at least 3 functions. The conductor beats time with his or her hands or with a baton in performance. The conductor makes interpretative decisions about musical works and implements these decisions in rehearsal and performance. The conductor participates in the administration of the musical ensemble. The word conducting acquires its present meaning at the 19th century as the practice developed in its modern form. Conducting is largely limited to the tradition of Western art music, although other traditions have adopted the practice. Here, what I would like to put on the table is what is understood as conducting. How can define conducting? The problem is we have some gaps between the generical understanding of conducting as the definition, the dictionary definition makes it, and which way should someone to get over this path. So, how can someone become a conductor? And then, how can someone learn to be a conductor? And even, how someone can learn to teach conducting? These 3 questions, they accompany me for the past 30 years, since the very first time I had a conducting class in my hand. As a student, I had good professors, and more or less, I could succeed in the advising they gave me. But at that time, I had some classmates who did not. When I started to teach, I faced the same situation. Some of my students could get all that advising and could learn conducting easily, and some others, they don't. The problem I put myself at that time was, so, is there some people who will naturally be conductors, while some others will never be? As a professor, this question is very, very uncomfortable because I really trust that in any field, it is possible to teach someone how to do something, how to handle certain tools. And my work for these past 30 years is to adjust the ways to teach conductor in order to have some tools, some practices that successfully will make the difference in the education of several different students. For that, I arrived at a certain point that I named the definition between musical and non-musical skills. A methodological procedure used to the purpose of research I have done. It aims to identify and classify matters and issues about conducting learning, teaching, and working. Let's see which are the musical and the non-musical skills involved in conducting research, in conducting studies. Musical skills. The discussion of musical skills comprises the major part of the literature, representing what many consider essential and basic for conducting. Musical skills can be grouped into two distinct areas, each one with sub-areas. Let's take a look at that. The first great area in musical skills is what we can call techniques. And I listed 5 possibilities over here. The very first, gestural technique, the building of a repertoire of gestures that convey musical basics and understanding, and through which they will be communicated to the ensembles. And rehearsal technique, that is just below, and I'll talk about that later. So what is gestural technique? It's everything we built in patterns, forms, measure, marks, and so on, that is basically understood as floor, wall, ceiling, for example, in a very joke way to define a 4 bits measure. Whatever is regarded to the gestures we do facing an ensemble is comprised by what we call gestural technique. Rehearsal technique, the organization of musical works preparation, effective ways to help an ensemble realize music artistry. Rehearsal is not only to repeat practice. Rehearsal is a planned work, controlled area and time that we have the point we start and the goal we need to reach. And inside that tempo, inside that period of time, we have all the steps we need to go through to achieve the results we need. The third point about techniques are the performance technique, leading to prepared work for the final results. That means we have one environment called rehearsal, where we're preparing the materials, the performance, all the interpretation issues, and the performance what we need to do at the live performance to make it happen. Both of them are techniques. We need to start them to have the best way to do them. That means obtain the best result, wasting the less amount of time possible, and especially with everyone happy. This is what we do in rehearsal. When we move on to the performance, we need to have everything that is prepared along the rehearsal to make it work at the live condition. Another technique is what I called conducting, coaching, and accompanying techniques, allowing the conductor to adapt gestural, repertoire, and performance skills to specific musical directing environments. And at the end, one last technique is error detection, the use of our skills to correct errors leading to desired static result. What I mean over here is, when you are over the podium, you have to be prepared to do your rehearsal, so you have to plan it. You have to handle all the techniques to conduct, to accompany, to coach, to rehearse, and you must be able to detect with your oral skills all the problems that happen in order to make the work and ensemble function in the best way possible. And we will use the gestural technique to communicate with the ensemble. So all these 5 technique points, they should be one single amount of patterns, of knowledge, of practices a conductor should handle well. The second point about the musical skills is whatever is related to study, preparation, and interpretation. Here we have some important issues: score reading, score study, music theory and analysis, music history and performance practices, including tradition. This is especially useful for opera. Instrumentation and orchestration, including instrumental techniques, is very important for a conductor to understand how each instrument works. A conductor is not mandatory for a conductor to know how to play every instrument. No, you should be an excellent performer in one instrument, but you should know how each instrument works, how each instrument gives technical matters, difficult passages for the performer. Ear training and oral skills, literature and repertoire, programming, aesthetic considerations, and interpretation. All this list is important because the conductor will be effective not only if he or she has the techniques well built. You need to study. You need to be prepared to understand the musical work you have in hands. So when you jump onto the podium, the musical work you will work should be completely understood. For that, you need score reading, score study, music theory and analysis. This is completely important. Music history, instrumentation, ear training, and oral skills are useful not only for error detection over the rehearsal, but also when you are preparing yourself, your oral understanding of the musical phenomena is completely important. Literature, of course, programming, aesthetic considerations, and interpretation. The non-musical skills area is typically ignored by many conducting texts. Perhaps because the existing scholarship and research is found in specialties removed from music. The following non-musical skills are mentioned, but not fully developed in a systematic way. Here are a small list of some non-musical skills important for the conducting student, for the conducting professor: leadership, charisma, communication, human relationships, management, and administration. Leadership is what we call the ability to lead people to get the best result they can. Of course, there are some leadership skills, and we can find in the literature books that will explain some of those techniques. But there is some inner understanding of leadership that makes the great leaders. Charisma is the ability or the talent people has to be able to make people realize things, especially those things people don't think they are able to do. Communication is definitely necessary. Over the podium, directing an orchestra, a choir, you should be able to communicate well, either with your gestural technique, as well as the way you communicate with people. A leader is essentially the person who can communicate effectively. Human relationships. Music is a human work. We work with people, and conducting is the essence of work with people in music. I usually say to my students, the most complex difficulty in conducting is for us to remember that while an instrument player has her instrument in hands and produces he or she, himself, his own sound. When I sit at the piano, my hands take the sound from the keyboard. When I sing, it's my voice producing the music I want. At the podium, when I direct in a choir, it's not my voice, but the choir's voice. Facing an orchestra, each instrument performer has their own instruments. They are producing the sound, but I am, as a conductor, building the performance. So conducting is how to make music with somewhere else's hands. So you need to handle well human relationships. And of course, management and administration, because the conductor, most of the time, he or she, they need to work with budget, with programming, with seasons, with people, with conduction, conditions, structures. So you are actually a manager of many resources. So the technical approach, as I quoted in the title, basically faces the musical skills, the techniques, and the study, preparation, and interpretation. This is the environment where we have the technical approaches to study, to learn, to teach, to work with conducting. And the psychological and social approach is exactly those who are related to the non-musical skills. Here, I mentioned combination of aspects, because as we could see in the list about the non-musical skills, I listed 5 items, and most of the time, all those five, they happen exactly together in combination. Another problem is we have scarcely and rarely presented these non-musical skills in the literature. However, they are especially accessible through interdisciplinary research and studies. So, about non-musical skills that we need to learn to work with conducting, most of those materials, most of those information, we only can find in another field research and studies, not those one of music. And this gives us one more step of work because we need to study whatever is inside our environment in music studying, as well as we need to go and take a look in other areas. Then we need to go to some findings. The very first one is a finding by Norman Lebrecht in his book, The Maestro Myth. Historically, what outstanding conductors have had in common is an acute ear, the charisma to inspire musicians on first acquaintance, the will to get their own way, high organizational ability, physical and mental fitness, relentless ambition, a powerful intelligence, and a natural sense of order, which enables them to cut through thousands of scattered notes to the artistic core. This ability to obtain an overview of the score and convey it to others is the essence of interpretation. Since order is, in Alexander Pope's phrase, heaven's first law, its imposition is perceived as a quasi-divine act that bestows on the conductor an ethereal glow in the minds of his players. Lebrecht here, what he quotes, is exactly a trial to talk about the combination of all those musical and non-musical skills I have mentioned before. Here, another finding, this one from Max Rudolph. Max Rudolph, in his first edition of his The Grammar of Conducting from 1950, he starts the preface with a curious assumption. In fact, his reason to write this book, The Grammar of Conducting, and responsible to provoke me to write my dissertation and book. Here is what Max Rudolph says. Part musician, part actor, the conductor pursues a craft which is not easily defined. Probably very few people have more than a vague notion of what the man with the baton is actually doing. Can his art be taught? Years ago, I was assured by well-known musicians that in conducting there is really nothing to learn but the simple rule. The first beat in a bar goes down, and the last beat goes up. The rest is experience. This book here is Max Rudolph talking about his book, The Grammar of Conducting. This book would not have been written had I thought he was right. And then I complete. I would assume the same. If I had thought this assumption was right, I did not make the research of my second doctoral program. Here I have a finding by myself. Regarding to the literature in the area, most books assume that the acquisition of excellent musicianship skills is fait accompli. Observing many of today's conductors, students, and others proves that to be a false assumption. In the review of this literature, I discovered that the basic skill required for conducting an orchestra, excellent oral perception, well-developed rhythmic acuity, and superlative understanding of harmony, among others, are rarely mentioned in a consistent way. The bibliographical resources which present this approach understand that overall education in general, studies in music, even being very important, is insufficient for the studying process in the field. So the resources either disregard this matter or present it inconsistently. I quoted myself from my conducting research in my second doctoral degree. Here we are back to the epigraph I mentioned at the very beginning. The epigraph said, not only is there an art in knowing a thing, but also a certain art in teaching it. What I really mean is conducting can be taught. Conducting can be learned, even considering the lacks in literature and inconsistency in resources. Here I have some of the bibliography I used to make this presentation to you. The very first one is my book that is after my second doctoral dissertation. You can find online in virtual bookstores, The Art of Orchestral Conducting, Annotated Bibliography. Galkin, A History of Orchestral Conducting, Theory and Practice, excellent book. The entry in the Oxford Music Online Conducting by Michael Kenneth. Norman Lebrecht's book, The Maestro Myth, Great Conductors in Pursuit of Power. I had some problem here with the presentation. Give me a moment, please. There you go. Of course, Max Rudolph's The Grammar of Conducting, a comprehensive guide to baton technique interpretation. I would say Max Rudolph's book is the best book in conducting we can find. And the very end are the entry Conducting in the Grove Music online by John Spitzer and some other authors. Thank you very much. This presentation I will send to Gaby as a PDF file, and she can forward them to you. And here are my contact as professor over here at the Federal University of Bahia. If you need any other information, any other help, in any case, I will be at your disposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor José Mauricio Brandao. And I would like to ask any student, do you guys have any question? No. So, in your presentation, Professor, what is not upfront, I mean, the person to be a conductor must be in excellence for the musical notation. Needed to know for sure the metrics and pitch. Cannot be just a gestury process, but is a full knowledge of the music, literature, and musical notation, the cement of the music. Is that right?
Exactly, Gaby. Exactly, because we need to point out a very single issue. As you can remember, I mentioned at the presentation, one of the great problems in conducting is the fact that we are making music with someone else hands or voices. That means a conductor can be a musician in the silence. This is a great problem. Why? Because someone, and this sometimes is the way common people understand conducting, they assume that if you don't know that much, you can be a conductor once you are not the person with the hands in the instrument. And this is not true. It's exactly the contrary. Because we are doing music with other people's hands, we need to be extra prepared. So the basis should be solid. Our skills, whatever relates to music notation, music score study, that should be basis. You should be completely confident about your abilities and your skills. The second step is whatever is related to music theory. You need to understand music. It's impossible for a conductor to face a score. He or she cannot understand structurally how that work was built and how can it be performed. Start from this very central and basic points is a lifelong study process. I am still studying. When I prepare each of my semesters, I have my classes, I have the school to take care, but I save some time for my time to study. I need to go over again to my instrument, again to my oral skills, again over the scores, a trial to enlarge my knowledge of the literature. The symphonic literature, for example, is huge. So if I am not keeping myself studying, I will be lost. So the same advising I give to my students, I give it to myself. I need to be continuing studying.
Thank you. On the technique of gestures, the person can create their own gesture, or there is a traditional way to do?
That's an excellent question. I would say we have the both possibilities. There is an established gestural technique. And nowadays, I would say that we have a mixed combined ways of techniques. About 60, 70 years ago, we could find some different conducting schools, mainly the German school, the French school, the Far East school by Hideo Saito. And basically what we got, especially after World War II, when many conductors, they moved to US, what we had was a process to mix these three schools. That means around the last quarter of last century, these three schools became somehow mixed in what we call today the established conducting communication tradition. These we can find in the good books. Of course, a student trying to build her career in conducting can add some particular elements, of course. The problem is, try to figure out, I am here in Brazil, and I should be invited to direct an orchestra in China. When I arrive in China, and I have, for example, 3 rehearsals to perform Beethoven's Eroica, Brahms' Violin Concerto, and Master Singer Overture. And I will have 4 rehearsals only. The only way I can use proper this little amount of time to prepare these 3 works is to communicate well and communicate fast. The first step to communicate well and fast is to have your gestural technique built on what the established tradition have done, because with it, I can communicate with orchestras wherever else. Not only that orchestra that is working with me every day. Of course, if you are working with a single orchestra and you work with this orchestra for 20 years, many particular signs, many particular gestures you do, that orchestra, which works with you every day, of course, it will understand you. But you have the situation to face an orchestra that have never seen you before. So I encourage my students to build the basis of their gestural technique on the established good tradition, and the literature has all the information for that. And of course, they should add whatever they think they will use properly, effectively in their communication with the ensembles.
Thank you. So I appreciate Professor José Mauricio Brandão to take your time to come here and teach us. Thank you all the students that also came. Before we finish, I would like to just make sure that the students are here. So Owen, say hi if you're here, please. Owen. Alexander.
I'm here. Thank you for the presentation.
Okay. Frankie.
I'm here. Thank you for your time.
Koya. Sorry, I do not know if I'll say your name. Koya.
Hello.
Dustin.
I'm here. Thank you.
Isaac.
Hi, thanks very much.
Peter.
I'm here. Thank you for the presentation.
Mateo.
I'm here. Thanks for the presentation.
Megan.
I'm here.
Carissa.
Hello. Thank you.
Paul. So Paul.
For the presentation.
And Janice. Janice, I'm not sure. Okay. So thank you very much, Professor José Mauricio, and have a nice afternoon. And hopefully we can have you one more time here with us.
Of course, Gabe, anytime you need, I will be ready for help. And here, of course, when we get our lives back, let's trust in the near future, we will have the possibility to travel again. And as soon as I can schedule a visit to US, let's try to have a visit at New Mexico, and it will be a pleasure to work with your students.
Thank you very much. So have a nice day and then afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Bye-bye.